Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the High School Dance Championships official podcast. And today's episode is all about how to host virtual tryouts for your dance team. Ooh, how many of you guys are getting ready for tryouts? Whether you're a coach or a dancer, what is your high school doing for tryouts? I bet you're doing a virtual tryout, or maybe your school isn't even letting you do virtual tryouts at all. Oh, my Lanta. That is one of my favorite phrases. So yeah, we've got some stuff to talk about today on today's podcast. Again, this podcast is in response to the recent virtual national dance competition that I hosted all of last week for 7 days, making history with over 70 participating high schools from across the country. Thank you so much for your support, but let's get right to it. So what's going on with tryouts, guys? How many of you guys are allowed to have tryouts? As a director and coach of my own program, I barely got permission this week to host virtual tryouts. And in case any of you were curious, most of this has to do with equity access. You know, if you wanted to go and audition for a company dance team or a company dance program at a private dance studio, if the dance studio is even still open during quarantine life, then that is totally up to you because you are paying out of your own pocket, and the creative director or the owner of the program is essentially able to conduct business how they see fit. But in education, K through 12, at least in California, we have to have a discussion about equity. And I was not able to host virtual tryouts for my own team until every student in the district had equitable access to those virtual tryouts. What did that mean? That meant every student had to have access to the internet. Every student had to have access to technology. And when our school district, because I am a dance teacher also, I teach full-time at the high school where I teach, when our school district sent all the students home, for quarantine, it took them about, a week to get kids laptops for students who didn't already have a laptop. Many students are even homeless or don't have power or access to utilities, let alone the internet. So they were provided laptops, they were provided internet access through district network. And that was, in essence, the way that our school district responded to the coronavirus to give students equitable access to distance learning as everyone migrated to a couple different online platforms. I know in high school, all of our students are using Google Classroom now. How many of you guys are using Google Classroom? Raise your hands. How many of you have heard of it? Maybe you haven't. It actually is pretty cool. So anyway, let's get to how tryouts can work for you. And I actually wanted to give a big shout out to our Dance Showcase sponsor from Virtual Dance Nationals Week, West Coast Elite Dance, and especially my friend, the owner of that company, Stephanie Nori, for putting out 4 weeks ago a really cool guide on how to host dance team tele-tryouts, or, virtual tryouts, for those of you who are more comfortable with using that word for everything now that we're doing online. If you're curious about how to get your hands on this guide, or if you'd like to follow along, just check out my posts on Instagram just next to this podcast episode. But I'm going to kind of go through it step by step, and the tool that they provide is actually really helpful and has helped me in modifying my own tryout process that I have basically stuck to like clockwork, like a tradition every year, and modifying it for this new reality that we are all living in. So the first thing that West Coast Elite Dance suggests is to get the word out, to create a social media post listing mandatory tryout meeting dates. If there's like an orientation meeting, having your team dancers post that on their social media accounts, Tag local dance studios in your post. Email local dance studios asking them to maybe email meeting details to any students who they know are going to be entering high school in the fall. And also email anyone you know that may be interested in tryouts. I know a lot of dancers have friends that are still in 8th grade or in other grades currently at the high school that may not know that we are still hosting tryouts, or maybe that your program is still planning to move forward with virtual tryouts. Number 2 is to upload your materials. So upload all your tryout materials to some sort of Google Classroom or shared Google Drive or a Dropbox. I know that at least at my school site, our district uses Google Classroom as a district tool. And if you're not a student within the district, you won't have access to use the login information to get into the Google Classroom. And so what I did for my own program is I did host all of my videos on Google Classroom, and I'll be accepting tryout submissions through Google Classroom for students who are currently a part of my school district. But for anyone that's outside of the school district, I'm asking them to upload their materials to their own cloud drive like Dropbox or Google Drive, and then just share the link to that folder with me that would have their performance video or whatever it is that I'm requiring them to do. But back to the tool that West Coast Elite provided that you can find again on our Instagram, is the third thing you'd want to do is host a parent meeting. And in the parent meeting, make sure you are doing that virtually. Do it on Zoom. If you are a member of a high school or a K through 12 and you have a email address through your school district, I know that the 40-minute meeting limit for Zoom is actually not applying right now. Zoom is allowing you to have meetings that last as long as you want them to, as long as your email address is through a school district. If you're using your own private email address, then your meeting would be limited to 40 minutes. So I suggest keeping your orientation meeting to 30 minutes or less. I don't think you need 40 minutes, just generally. Also, you can share the computer screen and your tryout packet during your Zoom meeting. So if you'd like parents and students to follow along as you explain the details of your program, you can share your screen in Zoom, and it's actually really, really easy to do. Also, you'd want to have all dancers download any important handouts that you have uploaded from Google Classroom or any other shared cloud drive that you're most comfortable using. If you're not comfortable using Google Drive, I know I never used to use Google Drive either. I was a Dropbox fan. And now that I'm using Google Drive for almost everything for teaching, I adapted. I bought in. I was converted against my will. But number 4 is to then, focus on your tryout videos. Post your tryout videos either in Google Classroom or on an unlisted YouTube link, which is what I did. And then I shared it on a dedicated page on my website for my dance program, for those of you that have your own website through your school or through your own booster program. And keep in mind that you may need to structure your tryout routine differently. You may need to focus on less skills because students may not have space at home. Not everybody has access to lots of space. Some students live in small apartments. Some students live in large houses or have a backyard or don't, or have a garage that's full of junk or don't. So those are just things to think about. And then, try and, just focus your tryout routine on using a small amount of space because of those different variations that exist in living conditions from student to student. And then upload your videos. So put them all in a Google Drive or whatever, any sort of folder that you can kind of put all those videos in, depending on how many skills you're assessing. I know for my own program, I have a dance team which focuses on a variety of different dance styles. And I also have an all-male hip hop team. And the tryout videos for each of those groups is completely different. And for your program, I'm sure it will reflect what you focus on and what your structure emphasizes the most. So just keep that in mind and really think about what will be most important to assess and what skills you might be okay with building on in the summer or when school begins again in the fall, whenever you're all allowed to meet again. The next step is to share your tryout folder with your judges. If you do have judges who generally come in to score your audition process, then just share this folder with your judges electronically. And this is something that I did for Virtual Dance Nationals, since we had our competition judges scattered all across the United States. Cool thing is you can just share the folders of all the submissions and have them score things that way. And if you're not planning on using judges, then at least you have an idea of how to do it. Create a spreadsheet also via Google Sheets, which is really, really helpful, and share that with your judges too if you're doing this electronically. That way judges can type scores into the spreadsheet as they watch each tryout video, and all of the scores and the sheets would update automatically, and you would not need to, email back and forth with your judges to see if they scored anything or if they watched the videos that were submitted by tryout applicants, because, you can actually see if they did it or not, which is kind of cool. And then after you've collected all the scores, post your new roster for your new 2020-2021 dance team to Google Classroom or to your Instagram account for your team, which might be a great way to get new followers, or to your team website. And then the last thing that you'd want to do is to hold a brand new team meeting for everyone that was accepted into your program, and also include their parents, and do that again through Zoom. And since you would have already done that at the beginning of this process, you'll be a pro at it by this time. So that's basically it. The cool thing is that West Coast Elite jumped on this idea, kind of foreseeing that teams were going to have to think about virtual tryouts. They jumped on this idea about 4 to 5 weeks ago, and I love this flyer that they put out. I'm posting it on our Instagram, so make sure you check out our Instagram and you check out theirs at WCE Dance for more of their content. They do have excellent events and competitions that your team should totally check out, as well as some cool summer intensives and dance camps. And that's all I have for you guys today. Hopefully this was informative and this was helpful, and that you were able to, pick and choose what ideas sounded like they would work for your own program. And if you're not a coach or you're not a director and you're a dancer, maybe you can offer these ideas to the dance teacher or dance coach at your high school, or maybe even your dance studio if you are a student at a dance studio and you're not part of a dance team at high school, just to kind of help keep the conversation going and provide ideas so that everybody can access dance moving forward. Because the last thing we want is for any of our programs to die off as a result of the pandemic. And I know we all love dance so much that we're going to keep it going, and we're going to do anything we can in our power for that to come to fruition. And with that, I leave you all today. Have a great and wonderful weekend. I will be back next week with our next episode. Have a great, positive, safe, quarantined life day.